If you are anything like me, then you are a total rebel. Okay, not really. I'm pretty sure one of the most rebellious things I did as a teen was to sneak out to the side yard of my house to drink a slushie. Not spiked with anything, just a slushie. So wild, I know. So I guess in that case, I'm really not much of a rebel. But I do sometimes feel like a bit of a rebel in the way that I approach adoptive parenting. You see, before we adopted, I read the books, I read the scholarly articles, I listened to the podcast, I watched the videos. I filled my mind up with so much information. But once my kids were actually home with me, I quickly realized that what works in theory doesn't always actually work in practice. And when I adopted more than one kid, I realized that even what might work really well for one kid could go horribly wrong with another. And that's when I knew that that one-size-fits-all parenting approach wasn't going to fit me. Kind of like one-size-fits-all hats don't fit me. I think I have kind of a ginormous head. My husband and I may have measured our heads to compare. Anyway, I'm getting completely off point here. Today, I'm gonna be talking to you about the parenting mindset that I developed over the years that completely changed my life, and therefore, it also changed my family life. And the best part, it doesn't involve me telling you exactly how to parent your kids or telling you to completely change your personality in order for it to work. And I am completely convinced that this 3-part framework will change the way that you view your adoptive parenting in such a positive way. Hey there, just a quick break to tell you that today's video is sponsored by my online support community, Adopt Together. This is a faith-based online community for adoptive parents like you who are looking for extra support and community with other adoptive parents in their parenting journey. We are actually getting ready to open up the doors to the group for the first time in almost 6 months, and so I don't want you to miss out on the opportunity. So in the description box below, you will find a link to the waitlist. You definitely want to join that because there will be some special discounts that will be given first to the people in the waitlist before it's given to anyone else. This is not only a great way for you to get some support on your adoption journey, but it's also a really great way to support this channel. If you love the content, if you enjoy the videos, you find them helpful, this is a great way to financially support this channel as well. And I appreciate you all so much for doing that. And I also appreciate you for just being here and watching the video. I love seeing your comments and getting to know you guys better. And so either way, whether you join the group or not, thanks for being here. Okay guys, I'm trying out a new filming location today, and so I have to use my ring light for the lighting, and I feel like it's making my eyes look almost scary, so I apologize. I'm just gonna go with it for today because I'm trying not to be too perfectionistic about it, but we'll see. Maybe it won't turn out that way on the video, but right now they look like otherworldly to me. Now let's get into what you really came here for. So let's talk about this mindset that completely changed my life as an adoptive parent. And this is something it took me a lot of learning over time to get to this point, and my goal is that you don't have to wait as long to figure it out. The first component of this mindset shift is there is not only one right way to parent. And kind of piggybacking off of that, parenting is an ongoing experiment, and we should view it as that. Now, obviously, I'm not advocating for you to use your child as a test subject in a crazy parenting experiment, but I think there's a way we can approach parenting as an experiment that removes the pressure off of us and off of our kids. Because I think when we approach parenting as an experiment, it frees you from that all or nothing perfectionistic thinking that can come along with trying to be the best parent ever. Well, if I don't follow this approach, then my child will be doomed. If I don't follow this approach, then I am a horrible parent, right? And so it can get you into this really kind of black and white thinking. And if we think about experiments, if we think about it in the scientific terms, you would have a hypothesis. You might say, I think that if we try this thing, then we may see this result. And then you test it to see if that will work. We're not walking into things saying, this is the only way, and if I don't do it this way, everything is doomed to fail. We're not saying, I'm gonna do it this way forever, no matter what. We're saying, I think if I try this, I might see this result. So let's just try it. A perfect example of this was when one of my children began constantly hitting themselves anytime they heard the word no. And honestly, it was distressing to watch my child do this to themselves. I didn't want them to hurt themselves. And I was really confused where it was coming from. It started out just happening at home. And all of the adoptive parent resources and books that I read about it said that you should never, ever, ever ignore your child if they're hurting themselves, because it can convey a message to them that you don't care if they hurt themselves and that you don't care about them. So I, wanting to be a great adoptive parent and to show my child I love them, followed the advice in the books. So I said, touch yourself nicely. We love you. We don't want you to be hurt. I gave a hug, told them I love them, etc. But no matter how many times I followed these expert recommendations, the behaviors kept escalating and escalating and escalating. It was happening more frequently, multiple times per day now. And it started happening in public as well as in private. And so that's when I knew like something is going on. So it hit a point where my husband and I were just at a loss. We did not know what to do. We kept doing what the book said. We kept doing what all the experts said. And one day I was just desperate. And I told my husband, I know the books say not to do this, but what if we did an experiment, a one-day experiment? Because I have this feeling that if we ignore the behavior, it is going to stop. And I was like, I know it goes against what the books say. I know it goes against what I told you that I read in the books, but what we're doing isn't working. And I think we just need to do a 24-hour experiment. I was like, there's no way we can completely traumatize our child for just doing this one little thing for 24 hours. And if it doesn't work or it gets worse, then we will stop after the 24 hours. So we did. We viewed it as a one-day experiment. And we made the decision. I remember specifically, we were sitting in the car having this conversation, and we got inside, and instantly we were given the first chance to test out this theory. And so with some hesitation, when my child started hitting themselves in the head, instead of saying, oh, do a nice touch, don't hurt yourself, I pretended like it wasn't happening. And I didn't just ignore my child and walk away, but I was like, oh, let's play with this toy. Oh, what's this thing? Do you want to color with me? I was finding other things for my child to do, but I was not recognizing or acknowledging the behavior of them hitting themselves at all. And it's interesting because at first, they started hitting themselves even harder. And they came and started staring at my eyes, going like this, like trying to get me to acknowledge that they were hitting themselves. And so I just pretended it wasn't happening again. I just kept redirecting, finding other things. Eventually, the child stopped. And you want to know the crazy thing? We didn't even have to do that experiment for 24 hours because I kid you not, it never happened again. I am not exaggerating. And it shocked me as much as it will shock anyone else that this actually worked. I mean, I was willing to try this thing for 24 hours. I honestly thought, oh, this probably isn't going to work out, but it worked. And I kid you not, we never had it happen again. And so this is where I started developing this mentality of, okay, what are other ways I can view my parenting as an experiment and not have these hard and fast rules for myself of what I should and shouldn't do, and that it can be okay to try other things because some things work for one kid wouldn't work with another kid. I know that I have another child where if they were hitting themselves and I just ignored them, it might not work for them. They might need me to say, don't do that, all of those things. And so I think what this parenting mentality gives you is the idea that there's not one right way to parent. And if the method isn't working, it's okay to try something else, and you're not going to scar your child for life by trying something else. And if your heart is centered around helping, loving, and supporting your child is going to be okay if you try out these things. The second component of this parenting mentality that was a hard lesson I had to learn is that I will never be a perfect parent, and I have to accept that. But the thing is, in accepting the fact that you're never going to be a perfect parent, it releases you in a way that actually helps you be a better parent, because there's not all this pressure that you're putting on yourself as a parent and therefore putting on your kids to react a certain way to your parenting. It's just better. It kind of reminds me, if you're a Harry Potter fan, I am, okay, that line where Ron says, you're going to suffer, but you're going to be happy about it. So that's kind of what it reminds me of. You're going to have a hard time accepting the fact that we can't be perfect. We want to be perfect for our kids, but we can't. But with accepting the fact that we can't be perfect, it actually frees us up. And I think there is a big pressure on adoptive parents to be perfect parents. There's that whole narrative of like, you took them from their families, you are raising someone else's child that parent may really wish that they still had that child. And so because of that, you need to be perfect all the time, which is just not a realistic standard for anyone, right? But I also think there's another layer that maybe adoptive parents are putting on ourselves, which is I have to undo the trauma they have experienced by not adding to that trauma in any way, and by doing such a perfect job that it undoes the trauma they've already experienced. Again, not realistic. And something I've really learned through this that I think has been one of the most powerful lessons in my adoptive parenting journey is that my kids learn so much more from me when I mess up than they would if I was perfect. Because think about it, if I was perfect and I never messed up and I always did the right thing and I always kept my calm, sure, it would be really peaceful. I'm sure my kids would be happy with it in some ways. But what about when they mess up? What are they going to do? How are they going to handle that? If they look at me as their mom and think that I'm perfect and I never mess up, newsflash, my kids don't think that. But let's say that they did, they're not going to know how to handle when they mess up. They're going to think there's something horribly wrong with them and they're just terrible people or terrible kids or whatever. But when I mess up, and I do, I give them lots of opportunities to learn from that. I show them, how do you recover from messing up? How do you recover from doing something wrong, from hurting someone? When we as parents make mistakes or just make bad choices, we can show our kids how to recover by apologizing, making things right, changing our behavior moving forward, changing our attitudes, you name it. Because the truth is, if you were perfect, they would feel the pressure to be perfect and would have no clue what to do if and when they messed up. So that was encouraging to me as a parent, because I used to get so down on myself if I would lose my cool around my kids. It's like I need to be this calm and put together parent all the time. The truth is, we're all human. It's not realistic. There are days where I haven't gotten enough sleep and I just kind of like snap. And then I go to my kids and I say, I am really sorry. That was not okay for me to do. I think I didn't get enough sleep last night. And that's not an excuse, but I think that's why. So I'm going to go to bed earlier tonight because I do not want to do that to you again because it was not okay. We have those conversations, and it's showing our kids how to handle their own difficulties when they mess up. And the third component of the parenting mentality that changed my life is recognizing that I have unique weaknesses as a parent, but that also means I have unique strengths as a parent. Sometimes I've gotten down on myself because I have compared myself to other moms or adoptive moms that I know, and I'm just like, okay, I am not the super chill, fun, loud, okay with just the absolute chaos type of mom. That's just not who I am. I struggle with that. That's an area where sometimes I have to say, no, don't tell them to be quiet. They're being kids. It's okay. Because I'm the easily overstimulated mom. I'm the introvert, needs time by myself, doesn't like it to be crazy loud in my house mom. And I've compared myself many times to other adoptive moms I know who are so chill. They don't mind if their kids are doing all this stuff. And that's just not me, right? I'm also not necessarily the crazy affectionate, hugging and cuddling all the time and calling everyone pet names type of mom either. It's just not my personality. Obviously, I hug my kids and I love them, but I'm not this super, super touchy-feely person either. And there were many, many, many days, especially early on in my parenting journey, where I actually really fought with immense shame over this. I felt shame over the things that I lacked, and I was so focused on the things that I lacked as an adoptive parent that I wasn't seeing the strengths that I brought to the table that maybe the loud fun mom couldn't do or just didn't have those strengths. Those were her weaknesses. And I had this realization one night. I was like crying to my husband about how I didn't feel like I was a good enough mom, and there were all these things that I wished I could be for my kids, but I just wasn't that person. And it just hit me that there are things I have to offer that other moms don't. The same moms I was comparing myself to, I was thinking about it and I was like, they actually probably really struggle with this thing that I find really easy. And it's such an obvious thing that everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses, but I was so focused on my weaknesses and what I lacked as a parent that I really needed to have that realization. And so I started to realize that I am the type of mom who can handle hearing all of my kids' really hard feelings, even if it's about wishing they had never been adopted or being sad that they had to be adopted. I'm also the mom who can make my kids feel comfortable enough for them to open up to me in ways they won't even open up to their therapists. They know I'm going to listen to them without judgment, and they feel safe to tell me things. That is incredible. That's like a superpower that I just thought everybody has that. That comes naturally to everyone. It's not something that I'm uniquely good at. But I'm realizing now it kind of is something I'm uniquely good at. And so leaning into that really helped empower me as a parent. I'm also the type of parent who can get to the reason behind a behavior very easily. I can put myself in the kid's shoes and say, I think they might be doing this because of this situation going on or this feeling they're having, instead of just seeing it as just a difficult behavior. And I'm also an adoptive mom who's very encouraging of relationships with biological family members, even when it can be awkward for me, or even when other people in my life are telling me they'd be better off never talking to biological family again, because it's something I'm open to. And I'm the type of mom who's really good at brainstorming solutions to struggles my kids are having. So I'm not saying all this to tell you I'm amazing. No, these are things that I struggled to see in myself. And maybe you are like me. Maybe you are struggling to see what you bring to the table as an adoptive parent. Maybe you're just seeing my kids' behaviors aren't changing and I just feel like I'm not doing enough and I'm not good enough. What can you focus on? What are the strengths you have you can lean into? Because you'll be amazed at how leaning into those strengths not only supports your kid, but empowers you to be an even better parent, because you're not just being down on yourself the whole time. So who are you not? What adoptive parent does not describe you? But even better than that, who are you? What strengths do you have as an adoptive parent? Or if you're hoping to adopt, what strengths do you think you'll bring to the table that are unique to who you are? I'd love to hear that in the comments if you feel like sharing it. But just to wrap this up, since I have adopted this mentality, yes, adopted, pun intended, my happiness and effectiveness as a parent has increased significantly. And notice, none of this involved me trying to change my child. Did you notice that? In every single piece of advice, it's about things you can do, about things you can try, mentalities you can lean into. Sure, one of the mentalities is about having a mindset of parenting as an experiment so you can figure out how to help your child's behavior improve, but it's not about the end game of changing your child. None of this is dependent on your child behaving a certain way. This was all about my mentality and my actions. Because the truth is, there's very little within our control as adoptive parents, but this mentality is something anyone can accomplish. Do you know what else can improve your life as an adoptive parent? Getting support from others who are walking the same path as you. Don't forget, next week, my online support group, Adopt Together, is reopening for the first time in almost 6 months. And what's in the group? I'm so glad you asked. This is an online Facebook group that is private, a well-moderated group where you can go 24/7 to ask your questions to me and other adoptive parents who are there to support you. You will also get access to video trainings every month, special worksheets, community questions to help start conversations in the group, and more. Doors will only be open for a week and a half for new members to join, and then we will be closing the group to new members until the very end of the year. So join that wait list below now, and I'll also put a link to just the general page about the group if you'd like more info so you can check it out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having an amazing day, and I will see you next week.